Bears are some of the biggest and most dangerous animals in the wild. Often, people are warned to stay away from them at all costs. But when there's an animal in need, the only thing to do is to help it. Even if it is a 400-pound, 181-kilogram powerful bear with razor-sharp claws and teeth. Although it's a bit easier if the animal is younger, like the bear cub in this story. Bear jumps into a man's raft. When a baby bear is on its own, chances are the mother usually isn't too far away. Unfortunately though, this wasn't the case for one small bear cub back in 2020. As a rafting guide, Danny Allen often sees all sorts of wildlife along the banks of the rivers he kayaks down. Usually he is content to leave them alone, but that changed when he noticed a bear cub who was all on her own. Danny was rafting on the Nonchucky River between Tennessee and North Carolina when he spotted the lonely animal. Worried for the poor creature, he steered his raft to get a closer look at it. That's when the bear did something completely unexpected. She climbed right onto the raft. Shocked at this turn of events, Danny quickly took the baby bear to the USA Raft Company's Matt Moses, who had also seen the cub a few days before. Realizing her mother was no longer around, they knew they had to decide on what to do with her. The two men called the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, who took the cub to the Appalachian Bear Rescue. Once there, the young bear was given plenty of fluids, as well as the nickname Noli, after the river where she was found. An examination by the vets found that apart from being a bit malnourished, Noli was otherwise in good health and would make a full recovery, as well as helping her to regain her strength. The staff at the rescue center also began teaching the young cub how to climb trees, get used to her senses, and pretty much all the other bear necessities that she would need when she was released back into the wild. Eventually, after gaining a few more pounds, Noli was ready to go back into the wild where she can happily live out the rest of her days. Even though she was only small, it was still a very brave thing for Danny Allen to help her out, as even young cubs can cause serious damage when frightened. But sometimes the risk is worth taking, which is something these two fishermen in Russia also thought when they came upon a shocking discovery. Fishermen rescued two drowning bear cubs. What started as a normal day of fishing for two men in Russia soon turned into a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The men were on a boat in the Kalyria region of northern Russia back in 2017. Things were going normally when, all of a sudden, they noticed two brown objects heading towards them. After a closer look, the men realized that it was two bear cubs that had gotten caught in the lake's current as they tried to cross it with their mother. With the mama bear nowhere in sight and two freezing cubs hanging onto the side of their raft, the men knew that they had to help. One of the men, Rusian Lukinen, said they had swum across the lake with their mother, but she overestimated her strength and swam away. Thinking quickly, one of the men grabbed his fishing net and put it under one of the cubs in an attempt to scoop it into the boat. This was easier said than done though, as the bear still weighed quite a bit and neither of the men wanted to get too close for fear of being attacked. Eventually, after a lot of encouragement and help from both of the men, the first cub pulled itself on board. Then, it was the second cub's turn. The heroic people helped again and got the second one onto a pile of netting. Both cubs huddled on the boat as it was taken to one of the 500-plus islands on the lake, where their mother had swum to. Exhausted from their ordeal, the men had to help the baby bears off the vessel and onto the island. Finally, they managed to pluck up the strength to make their way to the forest, hopefully to reunite with their mother and put their terrifying journey behind them. It's not only the baby bears that need help though, sometimes even fully grown ones could use some aid. Although with a bigger bear comes a bigger chance of getting seriously injured. But that didn't stop this next man from stepping in and saving a black bear in distress. Man saves 400-pound black bear. Bears love food, and with their super powerful noses, it's not hard for them to sniff out the best grub. Usually, this isn't a problem. But when food becomes scarce, these hungry grizzlies will go to pretty crazy extremes to find more, which is how this one bear found himself in the middle of a town in Florida. Back in 2020, a 400-pound black bear traveled over 150 miles from Osceola National Forest to Alligator Point in Florida, determined to find food. When he was discovered shuffling through people's rubbish bins, wildlife authorities set out to capture the greedy animal and return him back to his home. But things didn't exactly go according to plan. Knowing that they couldn't move the creature whilst it was awake, they tranquilized him. Once the dart hit him though, the bear got scared and took off towards the ocean. Thinking it was a good escape plan, the black bear jumped into the water and began swimming into the Gulf. After getting a little ways out to sea, the tranquilizers started to take effect and the drowsy bear started to drown. Luckily, Adam Warwick, a biologist with the Wildlife Commission, was nearby. Without even a second thought to the size and strength of the bear, he jumped into the sea and after the animal. He reached the floundering creature and started to drag the 400-pound sleepy beast back to shore. As the seconds passed, the bear got heavier and heavier as he struggled to stay afloat. Luckily, Adam towed the bear the entire 23 meters back to land. Once safely back on shore, the bear was loaded up onto a transport vehicle and taken back to the national forest. Hopefully, this time, he learned his lesson about rummaging through people's rubbish. As for Adam, he now has an awesome story to tell people. But although he might have a story, this next person can definitely one-up him. Russian woman saves bear from closed-down zoo. Veronika Dishka is a model, professional dancer, and fishing enthusiast who lives in southern Siberia, Russia. Oh, she is also an avid animal lover. Back in 2019, she rescued a lonely brown bear who had been left without a home after the zoo that was taking care of him was shut down. After the animal had been raised in captivity, it was unable to survive in the wild and surely would have perished without the help of humans. Luckily for the bear, who is called Archie, Veronika took him in and looked after the lonely creature. Now the two are inseparable, with Archie accompanying Veronika wherever she goes. He sees me as a member of his family. We share food. He sleeps in my arms when afraid and hides behind me, said the Russian woman. The bear has also become a bit of a model himself, as he often has photo shoots taken with the kind-hearted woman. The two are extremely grateful to have each other and love spending all of their time together. This is one bear who will never need to worry about finding a loving home again. Whilst this is an amazing story, it's important to remember that bears are wild animals and that they can seriously hurt you if you get too close to them. Unfortunately, the people in this next story had no other choice as the bear's life was on the line. Orphaned polar bear cub rescued. When coming across a baby animal all on its own in the wild, it's difficult to decide what to do with it. If left alone, there's a possibility that the animal won't survive, but if people intervene, then it could also become too dependent on humans. It's a tricky dilemma that gold miners in Russia came across earlier this year, 2021. On the remote Russian island of Bolshevik, a baby polar bear had been left all alone after her mother had unfortunately died. With very few hunting skills of her own and hunger setting in, the young cub followed her nose and ended up at a gold mine. Once at the facility, she begged workers for food. Seeing that she was all alone and starving, the workers broke their strict rules, which forbade them from feeding the wildlife, and gave her some food. Over several months, the bear stayed at the gold mine, eventually becoming tame as the miners cared for her. The female cub spent several months living close to humans and got so used to them that it behaved like a dog, said a report. Eventually, though, the miners' contracts came to an end, and they had to leave the facility and the bear behind. Although they had to leave, they did not forget about their furry friend and instead called the Roya Vruche Zoo on the mainland to come and pick her up. 56-year-old Andrei Gorban, director of the zoo and the one who was in charge of the rescue mission, said the workers could only get in touch with us at the end of their work shift, as they had no communication link at the base. With the help of Moscow Zoo, the decision to save the bear was made and a helicopter was sent to pick her up. She has since been taken to the Moscow Zoo, where she will begin her new life. Unfortunately, the young polar bear won't be released back into the wild as she has become too tame. It was a difficult decision, but the miners saved the cub's life, and now she is able to live happily in her new home, which of course the miners will visit. What some amazing stories these are! But even though they might look cute and fluffy, it's probably best not to try these types of things at home. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below. See you next time for more inspiring stories.